Charity.
Robert and
Bro.
Grant.
So good to see you, man. Finally, you come here.
Finally.
You were supposed to come visit me like, what was that, like a year and a half ago? Maybe
Yeah, we were
more.
supposed to come to LA at some point. It was for another work trip, but that didn't happen for whatever reason. I don't know why I didn't come, but I was supposed to
Yeah,
come.
you couldn't come. I remember I was bummed, but then I said, I'm still going to take you up on that, and met you in Chicago.
Yeah.
And we had a good time.
We had a really
You
good
like took
time.
me to dinner at a cool place and everything.
Taught at Northwestern.
And I taught at Northwestern, and you taught me astrology.
I did teach you astrology.
You taught me the concept of my
North
node.
I taught you astrology.
Well, you taught me some basics. Yes, you taught me some basics, but I was very impressed, and thank you for that. So what brings you to California?
I am a rapper, songwriter, music artist. Actually, my birthday was yesterday.
What?
Or the day before yesterday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. April 7th. I just turned 30. Yeah, so that's like a monumental birthday. So I was just like, okay.
Dirty 30.
Dirty 30. But I'm super clean though. And so yeah, it was my 30th birthday, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm going to go to LA. But I wanted to be a workcation because I wanted to do a bunch of music stuff, but I also wanted to do a bunch of podcasts. I got like 4 other people's podcasts I want to be on. It's because of the fact. So here's the real reason. Since I've been celebrity, whatever you want to call it, via the internet, I have not been to LA anytime since then. So I've never in person met any of these connects, with the exception of you and a few others who happen to come to Chicago. But mostly everybody lives in LA. And so I'm just like, okay, let me go to LA and actually meet all of the people in real space and solidify the relationships that have developed via the internet. So that is why I'm here.
Well, I would say, you're definitely a great rapper and singer-songwriter and all of that, but I think of you as an advocate.
I am an advocate.
I think of you as an advocate. I think of you as a polymath. I think of you as someone who is very broad and very passionate about heart-brain consciousness. Can you tell me about that?
Yes.
What makes you passionate about that in particular?
When I was a child, I probably got bullied a lot, and I was always very passive. Interestingly enough, I'm tall, right? So I was bigger than everybody. So had I probably just punched somebody in the mouth, I would have probably won the fight. But there is something, you know what I'm saying? But there is something inherently in me that does not want to harm humans. It's just, it doesn't.
Thank you.
You hear me, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to do it. So I never liked fighting. I never liked any of that. And so as a result, I developed a very strong level of empathy at a very early age, maybe via the fact that I was being bullied. Back to the point of suffering. Suffering is the most important thing in life, arguably, because it is the thing that teaches us everything. Wayne Dyer would say that's the first step, and then you probably move past suffering to result-driven and then to purpose-driven. I do fuck with that. However, even in your purpose, I think that suffering is necessary. On my neck currently, I have a cross. I wouldn't necessarily consider myself a Christian, but I would consider myself a follower of Christ. And even if Christ didn't exist in the way that we imagine that Christ existed, the allegory of dying on the cross, this is the cross that we must bear, right? That life is about suffering, death, and rebirth. Scorpio, right? These things I am deeply passionate about. To answer your question, I went the way around. As far as heartbrain, I've realized that we live in a very brain-oriented, i.e. masculine energy world, i.e. patriarchy, white supremacy, all of the things that happen as a result of the overabundance of male, of yang energy, all right? You're really, really big into the Tao, all of that. And we have a super underabundance of yin energy, feminine energy, the heart. And all masculinity creates war, violence, oppression. All femininity creates crying and whining in the corner, being a hopeless artist, doing nothing with your life. That being the case, the integration of the two seems to be the most important thing for humans. That's the long answer.
Yeah, you know what? I could not agree with you more. I think right now is the moment for the world to move into a heart-brain awareness. And I think it's going to impact everything. And that's what the embodiment of the rise of the feminine energy represents to me.
Absolutely.
And that integration is going to be the most powerful thing for humanity ever in our lifetimes, and probably at least in the last 4,000 years.
That's right.
So tell me about Tell me about the other things that you're basically involved in, all the advocacy stuff you did. This past year, I saw you as a voice for, I guess, empowerment on so many levels, right?
Yeah.
And empowerment during the whole Black Lives Matter thing, right? And where that became you became a really strong advocate and voice for the community. And what was it that inspired you to do that? And what were you trying to achieve too?
So a quote by Eckhart Tolle is the key to enlightenment is awareness of the darkness, right? So oftentimes, specifically white followers often will be like, oh, I thought you were enlightened. I thought you were so spiritual. Speaking of all of this is divisive. And it's just like, it's not, because the thing is, it's just like, the way our world operates is very subtle. White supremacy almost always is not some very overt action. It is not Ku Klux Klan burning crosses and hanging Black people in their front yard.
Very rarely, right?
I mean, that happens, but and that's a terrible thing. But that's almost never. That's 1%.
It's not the day-to-day manifestation.
Right. The day-to-day manifestations is the subtle existence and the subtle, like, you'll be in a room, and if there's a white person here, if I take you right now to my hometown of Gary, Indiana, and I invite you to speak, no one has to know who the fuck you are. White man standing there, nice suit, let's listen to him. Because we've been subtly taught to shrink ourselves, right? And the same thing with women, which is why patriarchy and white supremacy are two heads of the same monster. All of this, the overabundance of masculine energy. And so I speak as that voice for the feminine, and I would call in this scenario or allegory, Black people would be the more feminine energy, right? Even if you think about, historically speaking, like, white people have created this Mac we're recording on. They have created all of these technologies and built these countries and things, right? And Black people, we dance, we sing, and we play sports, right? This is a much more feminine energy thing as a culture.
Yeah. We've talked about this before.
We know race is a social construct, right? So again, a lot of that is bullshit in the sense that there's no real difference in race. But racism actually is a thing. And it is the subtle manifestations of an overabundance of masculine energy and the very antithesis of what the heart-brain goal is.
Interesting. So interesting. That's an interesting connection to make between masculine and color.
Yeah.
Right.
White people didn't hug their way to ruling the world. They killed.
It's interesting because you're saying this, I remember you saying this to me before. It's like, the colors of white and black, so yin yang, right, are yin is the dark, right? It's the yang is the white. Right. So it's sort of like positive, negative, but it's also depending on which view you're looking at it from. It's kind of like looking at the Earth. If we look at the Earth from the North Pole, right, it spins counterclockwise. If we look at it from the South Pole, it spins clockwise. So it really depends on our reference point,
is
right?
Perspective.
Everything is perspective. And so what's the major message, though, that you want to kind of continue to propagate to the world, to Black people around the world, about empowerment and how to break out of this sort of like either generational or social or sort of construct that we've kind of found ourselves in this time? Because this is a short period of time here on Earth. We've gone through many, many different stages, many different periods of time. But what's the message of empowerment you want to give to people today?
So I am going to answer your question in an inadvertent roundabout way, because I hear your question, but I also understand that there's some nuance in there that must be spoken to. I'm writing a book currently called Build and Destroy. The basic concept of the book is about healing the self and the society simultaneously. Why is that necessary? Because no matter how much I empower people of color or women or trans people or anybody in any marginalized groups, if they still exist within societal structures that make their access to empowerment, like if I took you right now to the neighborhood that I'm from and you talk some enlightened shit, they're gonna be like, I'm starving. What the fuck are you saying to me? For real. Like, you think I'm saying? It's like, so when you know what I'm saying? When you don't know your father and your mother is a crackhead and all of these socioeconomic situations,
that's all nice to talk about. It's kind of BS.
It's not tangible.
Keep shit real.
You see what I'm saying? And so there has to be a simultaneous work of that empowerment work of uplifting. So to answer your question, I want to inspire as many people as possible to understand that they are limitless, to remind them that they are limitless. I want to become limitless and remind them.
How do you do that though?
Because
okay, it sounds good.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a cool little
slogan,
meme, right? It's
yeah.
like a slogan or a meme.
Yeah.
But how do you actually help people remember and know, maybe for the first time also, that they are limitless?
So my gut reaction, which is that sacral intuition we talk about, said Albert Einstein's quote, example is not the best way to teach, it's the only way to teach. So again, the preface of that section was, I want to become limitless and thereafter remind as many people as possible that they too are limitless. I.e., the reason we are polymath, the reason I want to write songs and write books and write movies and create art and reshape educational systems and reshape socioeconomic systems, right? I want to be the example, because once people see something, right, now they understand that it is possible for themselves. So really the first thing is to be the change you seek. All of the old quotes and cliches exist for a reason, because they were
repeated.
Yeah, because their life is
once
so
they're
cyclical.
repeated, it's like what I've been in marketing most of my career, and it's all about reach and frequency and consistency. So cliches become cliches because they're real. They're real and they resonate, right? That's the thing. So you've been doing that. I think I've seen. I love that one video. I even called you. I made a point to call you when we connected last time and say, I loved your message when you said, you know, what is it that stands between you and the life you want and the success you want? And then you just like pause. You're good at all the dramatic stuff. There's like this dramatic pause, and then you say, absolutely nothing.
And more specifically, I think I also said in there, the idea that there is an obstacle. The obstacle is the thought that there is an obstacle.
The only real obstacles in life are the ones that we allow ourselves to imagine.
A quote that I got from you that I think you said you got from Walter Russell or some shit. Genius is self-bestowed and mediocrity is self-inflicted. So you said that, and that's before I even knew you. I was watching you on the podcast, ironically. I was watching you on a podcast. My ex-girlfriend had told me about you, and she's like, "Yeah, you should watch this person." She put me on. She's actually the one who taught me astrology. You would love to be her. She's Slick, my sensei. She don't like me no more, so we don't even talk. But if you're watching this, hey, because she follow you, so she probably gonna see this. You know what I'm saying? But anywho. She has showed me that podcast. She sent me that podcast where you said genius is self-bestowed and mediocrity is self-inflicted. And that's the thing again, but back to that point of exposure, mediocrity doesn't seem, it seems intelligent, right? Conformity is a smart thing. It's safe, right? It's just like, oh, let me do what everybody else is doing lest I die.
Right.
And maybe that worked when we were tribal animals, when literally you might die if you walk away from the group because you're going to get your head ate by a lion. But now that we no longer have these threats, or at least in the Western world, we no longer have these threats in the same way, the idea of conforming actually is the very antithesis of safety. Because if you do what everybody else is doing, what are most people? Most people are depressed, sad, unhealthy, you dig what I'm saying? And it's just like, most people are not the way to look. And so we have to pick the people that we want to follow. And I choose to follow these people that we call genius or polymath, not because of, often people say to me, oh man, you're a genius, Charity. And it's possible, maybe I am. But back to your quote, it was self-bestowed. It is not, when you say that, don't say it in the sense of like, you're a genius, I can never be like you. Like, no, if anything, the fact that I exist is the very evidence that you also have that within you. Yeah, so that's what I try to do.
I could not agree with that any more than how you just said it. Okay, so as a musician and a creative, you create lots of stuff. What do you think about this whole NFT thing, non-fungible tokens, and this idea that you could take anything you create? I mean, I had somebody send me a text the other day, and they said, "Oh, you should NFT all of your artwork," right? Because I have like tons and tons of artwork, and I'm like, you should do an NFT on your artwork. And I was like, that's kind of funny. And I'll tell you why I laughed at that when someone said that to me. I think they're absolutely right. What are your thoughts on that? You know, musicians have kind of been, it hasn't been a great world for musicians for the last 20 years, I would say.
Unless you're a superstar.
Unless you're an absolute superstar, right? And it's a tough play. I have quite a few friends that are in the field, right? That are in music. I love music myself, and because of all the stuff I've written on 432, I come in contact with a lot, right? 432 hertz as a tuning standard.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on what's the paradigm going forward from a business perspective to really empower also musicians and their creativity so that they actually get compensated for it? Because the advent of Apple and kind of like all the streaming services and everything has really disrupted the business model for music. Not just music, but you know, all kinds of entertainment.
And creativity.
And creativity.
The thing is, a lot of, and I tell people all of this all the time, when Apple, not even Apple, when Spotify, because they were really the people that originated the whole streaming thing as we know it. Ironically, the founder of Spotify was also a polymathic person. He was in a band called Chester French. He was just a regular rock band dude. He's just like, oh, you know what? I'm going to create a streaming platform. He went to Harvard for like tech and stuff. So he was like a brilliant guy that he founded Spotify. What was bad about that founding of Spotify that I'm sure he didn't expect is that it stifled creativity, and I'll tell you how. Because of the fact that now, in order to put your music out, you need to put it on a streaming platform, which means that you can't sample anything, because unless you have the money to pay for said samples, then you lose clearance. The reason why sampling is so important, specifically in hip hop, if you name the biggest rappers out, right? Drake, Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, Chance the Rapper, most of these artists, actually, literally all of these artists, were discovered pre-streaming when there was a thing called mixtapes. And mixtapes is when you could just rap over somebody else's song, over someone else's beats. Right. And that's because everything was just so open. No one was thinking about monetizing in the same particular way.
Then the lawyers came in.
You see what I'm saying? But since that wasn't a factor, the amount of creativity, Taylor could go right now and record a song, or she could have at that time, record a song over a Patti LaBelle track and become a superstar. Yeah, totally. You cannot do that now because Patti LaBelle will sue you, because the only way for that to be heard is on these centralized things called the streaming platforms.
That happened to Robin Thicke, right?
With the blurred line situation, totally. Right? Which that wasn't even actually a sample. That's a big blunder in the history of music business, but we could talk about that another day, because that wasn't a sample. That was the people who decided that case, and this goes back to the flaw of the criminal justice system. I'm sorry, I think laterally. People were supposed to be in a judged by a group of our peers. That's the concept of a jury, right? And in that case, the jurors should have been musicians. Why? Because there was absolutely no samples of Marvin Gaye in it. It just felt the same. Because Pharrell, being the great producer that he is, knew how to imitate the sound of Marvin Gaye. Ooh, ooh, ooh. And now it feels like a Marvin Gaye song. It felt like a Marvin Gaye song, but it actually did not sample Marvin Gaye at all. But since the people were laymen's in the jury, they said, well,
they didn't have context.
They don't have that context. They were, what it sound like Marvin Gaye, so you did it. And now anyone can sue somebody for something just because it feels the same, even if it didn't sample them at all. Back to so many things are centralized. To bring it all the way back home to your initial point about NFTs, the thing about blockchain is the decentralization of everything, right? And that's fire. It is interesting. I am interested in the blockchain NFT world. My hesitation that you hear in my voice right now, or my thought process, is that it's atypical or antithetical to human nature. And human nature is very ego-based and show-off. So if I buy a Picasso, if you, Robert Grant, you as a person who are on this continual journey towards enlightenment and awakening, still have an ego. You got the big fucking phoenix right here because it looks cool.
I made it.
You're proud of that. That's your ego, right? You're proud of the fact that you made that, right? Say you didn't make that. Say Van Gogh made that. It would probably cost $2 million, right? Or more maybe. If Van Gogh made this exact sculpture and it cost $2 million, you will put it right here in your office. so that everybody could see my cool ass Van Gogh thing because, hey, look at me, I got this and you don't, I'm cool.
Mm-hmm.
That being the case, the thing that NFTs, what I need to see in that space to really be sold is a way to show off your stuff. How do I show off my cool ass thing that I bought? If I can't show it off, what's the point of owning it? Because most of the reason why we buy art is to show it off.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way to show it off. I'm probably giving somebody some keys and some secrets right now. I damn near wanted to talk to you about it. What it really needs,
Mm-hmm.
and we can do this seriously if you're interested. There needs to be a platform in which to show off your NFTs, right? Because so many times when the cannabis industry is strong, everybody wants to, let me get a weed dispensary, right? But the smarter people should go get things that are adjacent to that industry, i.e. let me sell bongs, let me sell wraps, let me sell things that go with weed, right? So instead of, my interest isn't so much about creating NFTs as it is to create the things that are tangential and adjacent to the industry that will help it build and flourish, i.e. a place or platform to show off the cool ass NFT that you got. It doesn't have enough flexiness yet. And humans like to flex. It's just part of our nature.
That's a really profound comment. And it's very consistent with my own thinking too, but not for this discussion here today. But I would like to continue that conversation with you. So you can ask me anything too, by the way.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I'm much more interested in your thoughts on blockchain because I want to learn about it. You gave me a brief description of blockchain, but I don't all the way understand it.
So, blockchain to me is the best way I can describe it, and most people don't really see it for this yet. It is governance process without more government.
Right. Understood.
And that's a deep, deep concept right there, because embedded in the whole blockchain architecture is kind of a democratic approach to things, right? And along with that comes voting and all of that. But it literally is a system that was built to create its own ecosystem, as it were, its own improvements, its own evolution. And that to me is what makes blockchain very exciting. So when I think about blockchain, I don't think of it just as this cool kind of fad techie thing. I think of it today more like DNA. So our physical bodies are represented by DNA, right? We have our entire genome. I can find all your ancestral history and all of the information inside your DNA. But where would we house all of our memories and experiences?
In the superconscious mind.
The superconscious mind, right? Superconscious mind. But look, who's to say 1997, the very first sheep was cloned, Dolly, okay? Only about a couple months ago, you may have seen there was a ferret. It was a really cute ferret that got cloned, right? Nice, cute ferret. If they can clone ferrets and sheep, how hard do you think it is to clone a human?
We're 99.99997% identical. So
exactly,
you might be a clone right now.
That's right.
Fuck you talking about.
You knew I was black underneath, right? So here's the thing. What happens when you get cloned? How do you prove you are who you are?
This would take me to a whole different conversation, but I want you to continue about blockchain. I know that was
so here's the thing, right? I see our identities based on our experiences, memories, creations, all those things getting stored on blockchain eventually. Everything getting stored on a blockchain. Then
so basically
yours.
The concept of like on some Black Mirror, like upload your consciousness.
100%.
You think that blockchain will store human consciousness?
100%.
Cap.
Check this out, dude. See this thing right here? You can't see it on the TV screen, but you see that little tiny thing inside there? Right? That's an interocular lens.
Okay, tell me about it.
I developed that. And that interocular lens is actually everything that your iPhone does, this can do. It goes inside your eye. It's an implant. It's a human cybernetic implant. Okay.
That's tweaking.
So that's pretty tight, right?
Yeah.
I got all these meetings on this next week about this, and I have all the patents on this. It's really freaking amazing stuff, right?
Imagine Neuralink.
I think it's cool, but I think that it comes with challenges because Neuralink has a hard time communicating back, to you, right? It can take your brain waves, but how does it communicate back to you? I wanted to use the eye as a transparent medium because I don't have to worry about charging them. Because first of all, how does it charge? You just open your eyes, ambient light. It's always charged.
Right.
Okay. How does it communicate with you? You can see it on the screen. There's a little screen inside there. How does it communicate with you? You just look on the screen just like you do on your iPhone. It's just projecting it forward. You would have a projection in front of you. It looks like a little holograph, but it's inside your eye. You'll be able to read like Google or whatever. Talk about human cognition enhancement.
Yeah.
I filed all the patents on this in 2013. They all got issued in 2017. I have the top ophthalmologist in the world, and the most commonly performed surgical procedure is actually cataract surgery, which is when you get one of those new lenses anyway.
Right.
Everyone eventually has to get it. So I thought, why would I want a contact lens or a Google Glass on the outside when I won't even feel it if it's inside one of my eyes? Now, of course, the encryption has to be damn good.
And what do you think about human acceptance? For example, right now, I'm really big on human psychology, specific with body language. When people cover their arms like that, that means they're opposed to things. She's crossed her legs and crossed her arms. She doesn't like any of those futurist concepts. She's completely opposed, and she can't even help it. That's just human side. That's just body language, right? If you don't like somebody saying, you're going to do this, right?
Yeah, because it's look, what we don't know yet, we will be uncomfortable with to a certain extent.
So how are you going to get people like her to do it?
You know what? The nice thing,
just because you were the example right here.
The nice thing is that I really don't have to do that work.
Yeah.
It's happening every day.
Yeah, just the consistent adoption of new things. And
look, I mean, here's the thing. 10, 15 years ago, I didn't do all the stuff that I do on my iPhone now.
Right. Facts. Okay. I agree.
I didn't even think I needed those things. In fact, if you went to people 10 years ago and said, hey, do you need an iPad?
Right.
Or do you need all this functionality on your iPhone? You would probably say no, because iPhone only existed from 2007 on, right?
I understand your point, but I wanted to combat it before you even get too deep in it. The distinction there is that it's not invasive. You're talking about going inside somebody's eyeball.
Yeah, but here's what's nice about that, right? And again, it has to come along at a time, and it's not going to be tomorrow.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be 40 years from now.
Right.
It's going to be sometime in the next 10 to 15 years, is what I'm saying, right? In fact, if you ever go to people and you do a marketing survey and say, do you need something that doesn't exist yet? No one would say they need something that doesn't exist yet. But once it existed, now if I came to you and said, hey, I'm going to take away your iPhone.
Yeah, it's a problem.
You'd be like, that's not happening, right? And think about what's the very first thing you grab in the morning.
Yeah.
I hope you weren't going to say something else, but thank you.
Depending on who next to me.
But seriously, we all grab our iPhones, and then we forget to charge it, or we lose it somewhere, and everybody freaks out. I mean, look, you could turn this on and off just by blinking your eyes. It's a really incredible technology, and it goes in less than 2 minutes. It's a 2-minute procedure. And in fact, Black Mirror actually did a show on this.
Yeah, I know.
Right? They did a TV show on this after the patents I had got issued.
Yeah.
So the point I'm trying to make is that what happens to all that data and memory, right, of all your experiences? Because now all of it has a camera on it. All of it can be recorded.
That's the thing where you can rewind arguments, and that's clutch right there. Like when you get into it, you're like, no, you didn't say that. No, you didn't say that.
Oh, really?
You put it on the screen. I did say that, in fact, so that's ideal for it to win.
Okay, but so check this out, right? So
and you don't have to forget anything.
So imagine now all of that, all your information is stored on your own private blockchain.
Everything you ever saw, like an archive, like Instagram, you could type in a date from when you were 12 and rewatch it.
Yeah.
Rewatch your day.
And what's to stop you getting cloned into a new body and uploading all that information connectivity to the next substrate?
So a quote from you is, beautiful minds are free from fear. Let me tell you what's the fear-based undertone of that. People's fear of death. I don't want to die. I want to live forever. Upload my consciousness to the fucking lens thing. Go die.
But don't even think about only that. How about
I would
having
rather
access?
die. I don't want to
Yeah,
be
I have no
to
problem
another
dying.
body.
I have no
Just let
problem
me
dying.
die.
No, I'm happy to die. But how about this? How about our kids being able to take all the wisdom and knowledge that we've accumulated
And talk to clone me after I'm dead?
No, not to clone you, not to clone you,
Okay.
for them to have access to that knowledge. So think about all your experiences and your whole life.
So you don't mean like videos and images of thought. You mean the actual thoughts that you thought.
The learnings, everything. Think about if you could have a child that is born into this world that has the benefit of all the wisdom you've accumulated in your lifetime. They can still have their own experiences, but they have in a different way access to the thoughts and learnings and all the experiences that you went through to help advance them so that they're not thinking about stuff all the time, like how do I get food on the table? It's a different paradigm. And I know it's not going to be easy for everybody just to understand and embrace. I'm just saying that technology is going that direction, and blockchain is going to be that technology transfer.
Yeah.
And NFT will be that technology transfer. So what does that mean for today, right? And how does that tie into voting? Well, how do you vote, right? If you can't prove who you are, you need to be able to prove who you are.
Yeah.
All of this is going to get tied in together into a new type of architecture that is going to be consistent with the future where mankind is going.
So here's my dystopian storytelling writer side talking, right? If I was writing a dystopian movie about your legs, I'm thinking of the one hacker who's just mad and he's angry at the world because whatever happened, you created this contact lens and his mother tried to get it and she died in that surgery. So he hates Robert Grant. He wants to spite everything.
This
that
sounds like a
done,
good comic book, by the way. It's a badass comic book.
He wants to spite everything that you've done. As a result of that, he studies his whole life to be the best hacker ever. And then he goes onto the blockchain because fuck your encryption method, because he's learned to be a master encryptor or decryptor. And he goes on and he deletes all of their thoughts and memories, and he deletes all of human consciousness. Then what, Robert? How do you prevent things like that?
Then I guess we're hosed. I don't think you can prevent anything necessarily. What I will say is this, that the types of encryptions will all have to change. All encryptions that are based on mathematical theories.
Because encrypting my phone or encrypting my bank account is one thing. Encrypting my thoughts is much more important information. I don't want a hacker, to be able to go delete all my thoughts.
That's why. So our DNA itself is actually a type of encryption.
Understood.
That type of encryption is called a one-time pad. Yeah. It is the only uncrackable encryption because it's based on information theory. Information theory is what the basis of all new encryptions are going to have to be. One-time pad is the only fully uncrackable encryption as long as you meet conditions of randomness, non-repeatability, as well as total secrecy, right, on those keys. So and then you have the problem of how do you deal with the key lengths and all that kind of stuff. That's what I do.
So you sound like calculus figures, like irrational numbers.
It's it's irrational numbers. Yes, absolutely irrational numbers. But that's a means to make it efficient so that it can basically compress, and you don't have to use a ton of data storage, right?
Square root of 2.
Square root of 2. So on the back of the square root of 2 is an infinite number series.
Right. That's why I chose it. Yeah.
Right. So, but all you have to remember is the number 2.
Yeah.
What if you only had to remember one number, and that was your code to everything, and no one else had access to that one number? But within it is an infinite amount of key material that you could store your entire genome on. You could store your entire experiences on. You could store everything on the back of the square root of 2. This is the kind of stuff that's happening right now, right? And that my team is working on right now, because we want to be able to help facilitate a transition towards this kind of inevitable shift, right? Now, it wasn't that I created cyber so that it was going to be tied to NFTs, right? I wasn't thinking about it that way, but I just tend to see the world always pretty far in advance of where it is today, and then try to pick the timing. It's what's the difference between Leonardo da Vinci and Steve Jobs?
I don't know, different time they lived, I guess.
Different time they lived. Actually, if you look at Leonardo da Vinci's work, It's incredible stuff. I mean, the guy was 500 years ahead of his time.
Yeah, and also I would say that there are a lot of differences. I would say Steve Jobs his genius was more in the realm of marketing and storytelling than it was in creation.
True.
Yeah.
But I think what his real other genius besides that was he knew when the world was ready.
He was a futurist for sure.
He was a futurist. He knew when the world was ready for his idea.
That's a fact.
Whereas Leonardo da Vinci was 500 years ahead of his time. You look through his books. Oh, there's a helicopter. Oh, there's a bicycle.
Right.
Oh, wait, that's a tank. You know, it's got. Oh, wait, is that a parachute? Every single thing that existed for 100 years later. But at the time, people thought he was genius. But they're like, dude, that guy's like off the rails, man.
Yeah.
Right. He was famously like, okay, just stick to painting and stuff because this is like cray.
Yeah.
It was too far ahead of his time.
Yeah.
So he didn't die super wealthy. He died in the king's arms of France, working for the king of France. But Steve Jobs, you know, geez, what today, in today's world, can we say had no impact from Steve Jobs when it comes to tech?
Yeah, nothing.
Almost nothing, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that trying to anticipate when the world is ready for things, not trying to push it.
Yeah.
Don't try to push it. Just be
You
ready
came up
for
with
it.
this in 2013.
That's right.
Right. I got your point.
So my point is, that's where I see blockchain going. I think it's going to be fundamental to our own identities.
Yeah.
I see that, and it's not here today. It's not real yet today, but it will be.
Yeah. And so I'm with it. I am deeply a futurist. She's super not. You know what I'm saying? She want us to just go.
She doesn't look quite as stressed now.
Yeah, she's chilling.
Relaxed.
She just want to go chill in the garden and sing songs.
Everyone calm down.
She said, "Is that
I'm
about?"
just an audience member.
That's yeah. But I am a futurist. But what I also am is my obsession, other than words and storytelling, my other obsession is human nature and human psychology, because I realize that the ability to understand and communicate with rhetoric is God, for all we know. Literally, the creation of God or what we imagine to be God was just great rhetoric. Mm-hmm. Right? That's all the Bible was. It's masterful storytelling. Yeah. Right? It makes the whole world bow, because that's the power of storytelling.
You quoted Ezekiel right before we started this.
You feel me? Right?
Yeah.
The beauty of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so saying that to say, humans orient themselves hierarchically around power. Period, Robert. Blockchain departs from power so much that I don't know if it's sustainable in our world. Because someone's going to try to be the nigga that dominates blockchain, that makes blockchain their bitch. That's just part of human nature. We like power. It's so egalitarian that it's almost anti-human, because humans aren't egalitarian at their core. They should be, but they aren't. I don't understand how blockchain can perpetually exist without becoming in and of itself the very thing that we're trying to sidestep, i.e. governance.
That reminds me of one of my favorite shows was the whole Batman series, right? Of like Batman Begins.
Yeah. Right.
And I also like the whole TwoFace character, right? I can't remember the actor's name that played him, but you know, the one that had, this is the Batman with Christian Bale, right?
Yeah.
And I remember there's a great quote in that film where he says, "Hope that you live long enough to defeat the villain, but not too long that you become the villain." And that was very impactful to me, because I started thinking about that, because I know what you're saying is true, right? It's very nice to think about utopian, but the other flip side of the coin of utopianism is dystopianism. It's there, right?
And I'm a utopian. Again, you're talking to somebody who believes in the spread of human consciousness.
Me too.
Believes in the seeding of an ascended culture. Eventually, currently, while we are still killing and destroying one another, like, cool, Elon, you want to go to Mars, and I'm a super big Elon fan, but like, that's just, World War III can go to Mars too. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's prevent World War III before we go to Mars, because we're just gonna go there and blow it up too. The reason why people are using Mars, we're not saying this. We're saying, oh, the seeding of human consciousness throughout the galaxy. Great storytelling, right, Elon? Cool, I like it, cute. But the reality of it is that's an escape hatch. We finna either blow this hoe up with World War III, or climate change gonna blow it up. Both are byproducts of this.
Let's go to that one next, by the way.
Both are byproducts of this dystopian human nature of power.
Mhm.
If we take that to Mars, we're about to blow up Mars too. If we take it to blockchain, somebody tries to be the Fed, by Fed I mean the Federal Reserve, on blockchain.
Oh yeah. No,
How is that
that's
preventable?
always going to be a risk. And I don't think you can totally prevent it.
Yeah.
I think all you can do is you can create mechanisms of the self-evolutionary nature of blockchain to ensure that does not happen, right? But nothing's perfect.
Yeah.
Things will evolve. All evolutionary systems evolve. There's no way around it.
Mm-hmm.
But we get smarter and smarter, and then the other side of things get, more and more clever to be able to break those systems. But I think the most important thing is this: it comes back to heart rate. If we can, this part of it, I agree with all the people that say, okay, let's just spread consciousness and plant seeds around the universe and all that stuff. There's an aspect of that that's me, but I am very much also grounded, right? Because I don't like to have ideas that don't manifest. You've already seen that just in the time that we've known each other, right?
Yeah.
So the stuff that I didn't even think I was going to do a cryptocurrency when we first met,
Right.
we never talked about it.
Yeah, for sure.
That was an idea that came up in the meantime and said, oh, geez, okay,
Yeah.
we're going to go do this now.
Yeah.
The thing is that I have this high need to turn thoughts into reality, whether it could be art, it could be math, it could be whatever it is. That's what I love to do more than anything else.
Right.
And for me, as I look at where the world is going, I think that the reason why the world is a tough place and the reason why we have all these challenges you just mentioned is not because people hate each other. It's because people hate themselves.
Mm.
There is so much self-loathing that happens in the world. The more we repress ourselves and we hate ourselves, the more we project that and hate everybody else. The things that we don't like about ourselves and try to hide from the rest of the world, and really we fail at hiding from the rest of the world because we're the only ones that can't see it, are the things that we blame and judge everyone else for in the world. So that is if you really want to get down to the core of how do you fix people feeling limitless.
Literally. I have a chapter about that in my book. It's called, I have two chapters that are actually, related. The first one is, does anyone pray for the devil? And the second one is there darkness within you? And they're like the chapter right after each other. But the does anyone pray for the devil chapter was based off this book, Paradise Lost. John Milton, magnificent, but it's basically for the people watching that don't know what that book is, it's the story of the Garden of Eden from the perspective of Satan. The fierest writing you'll ever read, because it humanized Satan. It gave Satan a reason. It's just like, bro, God been talking all this shit, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? But literally there's a whole story about why Satan did what he did. And you find yourself like, damn, maybe if I would have been in that predicament, I might have done the same thing. Empathy. Right. And that's what's so interesting is that everything goes back to empathy. We export evil because we don't want it to be within us. But the very exportation of it is just that, the exportation of evil, the projection of evil onto another. You hate what you are, or you hate what you could become, because oftentimes the people we hate the most, it isn't because we are like them. It is because we know that we could be like them, and yet we choose differently. And so we resent them for making a different choice.
Yeah.
It's the Jedi concept of they use the Force for evil. So we don't like a Sith because they're doing the same thing that I'm doing just for bad. So now I really hate you, or what we imagine to be bad, right? Perspective. That being the case, how can we understand that evil is something that exists within us all?
Now we're at the core of it, because this is a really, really deep topic, right? I had this chance to go meet the Dalai Lama in 2019. And I went to, I've met him several times before, but I got invited to teach him math and physics. So I invited 7 scientists along with me, and we made the trek to Dharamsala, India. It was epic. It was a great trip. I mean, we didn't know what to expect. There's like this whole security thing, we went through like 7 layers of security to get in, and then we waited for a little bit, and then he invited us in, and we spent 5.5 hours with His Holiness. And we were only supposed to spend 2 hours with him. And he invited us to stay for lunch because, when the Dalai Lama turns to you and says, is this glass of water, in your opinion, conscious? And I was like, geez, that's badass.
That's how we started
That's how we started this conversation. Geez. that's pretty epic stuff. And then when he said, when I showed him the prime number pattern, he was like, wow, you might be able to prove, sounds like you guys are on the path to being able to prove mathematically the existence of higher consciousness.
It's my favorite thing. First educational video I ever did.
And that was like, wow. And I'm here with Nassim Haramein. I'm with another biologist and stem cell biologist by the name of Hans Kierstead, who's a very close friend of mine. But I also invited Olivier Aliroll, who's a nuclear physicist also. And we had this whole presentation where only for the third time in history, he asked the group visiting with him to stay for lunch.
Wow.
So he asked us to stay for lunch, and here he's like serving us. It was so, he's such an amazing person, but core to the Buddhist philosophy, and you mentioned Taoism as well, is this notion that the light needs the dark and the dark needs the light. It's the suppression of one or the other that causes the imbalance. So what we're really trying to do in this world is trying to find our balance. And the way that light finds its balance is by embracing its vulnerability and need for the dark. Right? The light would never be bright. I mean, what is it? The light is brightest just before the sun is, as it's rising, it's brightest just before the dawn, right? When it's at its darkest moment of night. And I think what we have tried to do as a society and individually is try to take all the things we don't like about ourselves and take all the imperfections about ourselves and make them perfect. And then we all feel like something's missing. We don't know what it is, that thing that's missing, but we're all in a search for whatever it is that just feels like it's missing. Once we embrace, this is the conversation we had earlier, once we embrace this other aspect of the self, then it no longer feels the need to take over your life and wreak havoc with it. It works in concert together. When people say to me, they're only good and they have no bad, then I'm like, oh shit, run the other direction, because
Absolutely.
that's someone who is not integrated.
I wrote about that also in my book about the most quote unquote evil are people that believe themselves to be completely righteous.
Yeah.
Because when you think you're absolutely right, then you will do anything necessary to prove that rightness. You see what I'm saying? Like, because it's just, I am correct, you are wrong, and thus you must be evil, and thus you must be exterminated. And here, back to the other question about socio-political consciousness, this is what happens with police and Black people, right? There's this imagined rightness.
Yeah. There's like a self-righteousness
within our government, right? And specifically the narrative of Black people is that you guys are like this. And I have a video talking about Black people and compare them to spiders, because we are seen in society as something that must be exterminated lest it do harm to me. You see what I'm saying? Because again, it's all fear. Everything is fear. Like most murder and power and control is for some underlying fear.
Dude, I'll give you an example. This is going to be kind of a funny example, but I have two little kids. I have a 2-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl, and they love Lion King.
Yeah.
Right. So I went home the other day and I was watching Lion King while they're sitting there watching Lion King, and I'm like, why is it that Disney? And I'm not an advocate for the Disney changing Lion King and stuff like that, but it's so subtle the creators themselves probably didn't even realize it. Why is it that Scar, who's like the bad lion, right, is all dark fur, right, dark hair?
You already know.
I know.
No, it's that subtle. It's that subtle.
It's that subtle, but yeah, are there lions that have dark fur like that? Yes. Okay, but why did they have to associate it with
Word
that?
magic. Word magic. The very concept of being blackballed, blackmailed, everything with the word, and the fact that that is the particular word that was put on my people, because I'm dark brown, you're light brown, we're all shades of beige and shit, we're brown, you know what I'm saying? But I'm Black and you're white, right? And white as snow, white as righteousness, right? You will be pure as the driven snow in its whiteness, you know what I'm saying? So even those small language nuances, which is why my work is so obsessively centered around words, because I realize that everything—
Words matter.
Not only are they matter, they create matter, right? In the beginning,
Thank you.
The world was the word, and the word was with God.
We
and the
take
word
our
was
thoughts,
God.
we create them through our voice. It's all throat chakra,
Yes.
right? And that's why people used to say to me, they're like, dude, why do you go ahead and say you're going to do this or
Are
do
you into
that?
human design?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so you spoke about throat chakra, and the throat chakra is directly connected with the sacral chakra, right? Sacral chakra ruling creativity, and then throat chakra ruling speaking. She's a manifesting generator, which means hers are particularly connected. Both of y'all are particularly connected with creative force.
No, that's why my kidneys also had rough time. Because because I have always, and I didn't even make the connection. I had no idea. Obviously the sacral is connected to the sex organs and all of the urinary tract and everything. Right. I had no idea that the seat of my willpower was right there. Right. That was, and I would strain that because I would manifest through voicing something. So I would take big risks. I would say, I'm going to go do this. Like I'd say, I'm going to go crack 49.6-bit encryption or something. I would say that, and then I would go do it. And it would manifest to reality, right? Through the willingness to have the courage to speak it, to make it reality.
Shout out to the lion.
Shout out to the lion. You asked about the lion earlier, right? So the point that I'm making here is that all of us don't even recognize sometimes the subtleties, right? That we're reflecting around us. And I tend to think of the universe more as the U inverse than the universe, right?
U
so
inverse. Woo, 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 get it, Rob, get it. Yeah, that's fire. That's fire.
No, we've been friends since the moment we talked. I remember you were so sweet. You sent me this as soon as I followed you. You were like, "What? You follow me?" Yeah. It was one of the sweetest things I'd ever gotten as a message. I was like, "Well, dude," I was so impressed after seeing all your stuff. I was like, "Wow, this guy's interesting. He's such an interesting guy."
Yeah,
and that you have not disappointed on any level. So, but the thing is, I think we can embrace the darkness in ourselves, and by doing so, less bad shit happens.
Man, it's the key. It's the key. People, I ain't gonna say that. No, I'm not gonna continue. I was gonna go way back.
It's so true, right?
A fact,
it's so true. And it's funny because I even see, so if it's a U inverse, my U inverse, I was saying this yesterday, I'm like, wow, you know what? I've always had like friends that were like black guys, always, and gals, everything, always, my whole life. But now I've got so many. And I'm like, why is it that I'm reflecting that? And I think it's about this embracing the feminine. The more I embrace the feminine,
that's the thing.
The more I get more black friends. Isn't that funny? It seems like a weird thing, but it's like
it's everything. Like that's what I'm saying. Like culturally, again, like you said, this is a universe of wave and frequency and sound. Like, but the frequency that has culminated within this thing called white culture is masculine energy, right? Y'all create stuff to build shit. You want to conquer the world. You want to go to bars. Y'all just want, that's white people shit. You know what I'm saying? That's cool. That's beautiful. That's like no, that's beautiful. And we make art. We're creative. We're singers. We're songwriters. We're rappers. We're storytellers. We are the feminine energy. That's not to say that there aren't great feminine creative white people and great masculine black people, because again, both of these energies exist within us. I'm speaking more culturally, but the culture that has raised the African diaspora is centered a lot in creativity in those feminine structures, and the culture that has created this thing that we call whiteness, which didn't include this, didn't include that, but all the amalgamation of what we imagine white to be has become much more of a masculine energy thing. And so yes, when you kind of walk into that femininity and you embrace that rising feminine, black people like you.
So wait,
we like that.
Yes. So that means then, if we all embrace this larger archetype of feminine rising,
right,
then that both rise together.
You hear me?
Right? And will that also help to reduce racial tension?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Patriarchy and white supremacy are the same thing. They are the same. And until people really understand that there is no white supremacy without murder and domination, and that's the flaws of capitalism, right? Capitalism probably is the best system we ever had. The flaw of capitalism is that it is based on this thing about let me have more, let me siphon the most I can out of for the least amount right? And thus get the maximum
Or
profit.
let's tell everybody that something we have is the most scarce thing in the world.
You see what I'm saying? Oh, and then imagine scarcity is a whole nother concept.
Yeah.
But again, right, it's anti what the universe really operates off of, which is literally, not even figuratively speaking, but literally infinite abundance. There is no shortage of anything. The entire human population, this is a random fact. If all 7 billion people lived the way in which people in New York live, and we can say that New York is a functional place where people are happy, right? Or, whatever. If we lived as tightly together as we lived in New York, if the whole world did that, the entire human population could comfortably, functionally fit in Texas alone. And the entire rest of the planet would be resources.
We're told, right? We're running out of space.
Overpopulation.
Just drive across the country. That's bullshit.
Just empty.
They're just empty.
Empty. There are 4 buildings. There are 4 abandoned buildings for every homeless person that exists.
That's crazy, right?
There are 4 abandoned buildings for every homeless person.
That's insane.
And so in my book, I have a chapter that's called "Do You Know the Root of All Evil?" And I'm giving it away here for the people who like to read, but whatever. What I believe the root of all evil, the Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. Evil existed, or what we imagine to be evil existed prior to the concept of money. Why do people want money? Because it gives them power. You need power. It's power to get you this cool corner office where everybody wants to come in and talk to you. So power is necessary. Power is why you want to talk to me, right? And so power is okay. What is not okay and what becomes evil is when power is unmitigated by empathy.
Yeah.
Power has a necessity to be mitigated.
It's the brain, no heart.
You hear me? It's the brain with no heart. Because when there's all brain, i.e. all masculine and all patriarchy, without that heart of, let me make sure everybody else is okay, then I'll just stand on anything. Because I don't care about the existence of anything that I have to beat up or conquer.
Well, not only would you're expected to.
What do you mean by that?
Society. Think about the hierarchical structure that we have across society.
Domination is expected. It is competitive, right? We use language like competition.
Yeah, it's like, it's like, you go for it or you don't go for it, and you're a beta. You go for it, you're an alpha, and we put the alpha up on the pedestal, right? And you're expected to. So this is where it comes down to the integration. This is going to be the interesting part for you, right? And then I do want to finish something on Earth and walking together to kind of like raise consciousness and raise, ecology and integration. So for myself, I just realized recently that like I have all these different follower groups on social media, right? I have a, pretty sizable following on Instagram and Facebook and everything now. I've not really been at it for very long, only a few years.
Yeah.
But I also have a pretty sizable following on LinkedIn.
Makes sense, obviously.
Because I was a business guy, right? But you know what's funny? I was not cross-pollinating any. Why do you think that is? I separated those worlds. I'm like,
because you feel like all of your business people will think you're weird for drawing sacred geometry and stuff.
Yeah. And but who am I fooling?
Yeah.
Let's be real.
That's you.
I'm now the most referenced sacred geometry artist in the world. Really?
Yeah.
Like, how in the heck does that happen?
Yeah.
So then I finally realized, I'm like, man, I need to do some integration.
Yeah.
So I now decided I'm going to start integrating those worlds.
Interesting.
Right? And there was something very powerful that happened as soon as I decided that. When those worlds merge, it really is the physical representation of exactly what you're talking about. It's not